Thank you so much, Aaron. And yeah, thank you for your, amazing work on the book. It's just a lovely, lovely object. And yeah, all your patience and stuff with typesetting and all the work you did on it, it'll just look so great. So thank you so much for that. And to all the other readers today and everyone at Broken Sleep, really. And yeah, you put out so much amazing stuff. And I really love and appreciate that because I think poetry should be done at high volume by as many people as possible. Yeah, it shouldn't be kind of exclusive. And I feel that in the Broken Sleep ethos, and I really appreciate it. But yeah, okay, I'll start with the reading. So, two epigraphs at the start. But the educational system as it is can't but produce desperate gladiators. That's from Pasolini. To sing those songs meant you shared something with the people who had sung them before. That's from Sam Delaney. And the whole pamphlet is dedicated to Nisha Ramaya. Area studies. This is the greatest poem in the world. I don't want to hear 1 second more about scenes. Who the fuck are you talking to where you say it to my face? Acknowledgments. Nisha Ramaya's notes on Sanskrit doesn't have any translations in it, but it does have riffs. There are and aren't source texts. A language provides a surface. The whole pamphlet is about Sanskrit, about another language, yet not of or from it. In The Language of the Gods in the World of Men, Sheldon Pollock analyzes Sanskrit as a vehicle of poetry and polity, a language he suggests best understood as a form of early statecraft. At the beginning of the Common Era, this sacred language was repurposed as a code for literary and political expression. At the beginning of the second millennium, local speech forms challenged and eventually replaced Sanskrit in both the literary and political arenas. Nisha's notes in Sanskrit might seem humble, labeling itself notes on that language like some study aid, but really it inscribes on it, deviating from it, spray painting on it, desecrating it. We're all already woven into this language which was, and perhaps still is, a tool for exercising power, to impress one's subjects and other polities and each other. There are connections which you opt for and ones you cannot opt out of. You know who you are looking through the telescope the wrong way. It just runs right off, falls off the tongue as an insult. We held hands at the entrance, Teflon gates from tanks released. Nisha's poetry finds that Sanskrit has a surface which is manipulable, writes all over this non-dimensional point. It is held out at a certain length. Like Nisha's writing, Zidi ibn Sharam's Acharnement is a kind of graffiti, taking as its object contemporary literary culture in the UK right now, Arts Council funding applications, the prevent strategy. That is the accretion Zidi is confronted with and must alter by etching, chiseling, scrawling, spraying. I sometimes wonder if the politics we express in writing often cannot exceed the politics of its script, its typography, how we circulate it. Acharnement sidesteps all that. Zidi and Nisha peripheralize themselves, lie down in the suburbs and banlieues of their something or other. But it is more than that. Both of these pamphlets grab their objects. They find or make handles on them. They understand there's no going inside, there's no singing in the shower, there's no singing in the streets. Just because it sounds clear doesn't mean it's easy. The only thing we hear is fabric's grease. There's this scar archive called music, a red smudgy stamp for repeating what your teacher tells you over and over. Leave the bibliographies to the scholars. Lemma, side ahoy. At the microscopic level, animals all look the same. Tubules with calcite crystals, a meshwork of divergent branching and rejoining, subscription fees, the skeletons of ancient trees in time-lapse explode, inside turns out. Sometimes I just try to hold on when it confronts me as an object, like those songs which trip you up into the wrong beat pattern from the off, sometimes out, taking the whole set to express and refuse all cuts, strumming the supply lines, holding it wrong. We're not getting to the bottom of it. We're inside and after it. and still making room for the sounds that are yet to come. Words like a broken clutch in every transmission, a reception. Stingers spray across latitudes in potent gram to smooth over the intervals in tuning. Omar, Scout, James, Lucy, Cliff, Andrea, Aaron. Errors and omissions are collective, just as genus is a wiki. I've given you each a letter or a note. Do you remember? And as you move around, it changes the poem depending on your definition of poetry. If you can't remember or lost it, don't worry. It's just like that sometimes. No need to reply. The chrysalis becomes wings and a half-life asserts itself wholly, breaking then unbreaking rules of contact. And selected poems. If I was a submarine, I'd wish I could fly. These spoons are no good, but porous and dissolve in my tea. You look confused. Why don't you get at the kitchen? My kitchen is outside. And while we're on the subject, how many of you here can say, I too am the spinach delving rod? Don't throw up unless nonetheless wiser sideways goes drop. In the town of my enormous fluorescent upbringing, an ice cap breaks free to fuck off. Chunk identification. The life not sentimentally, The life not lived sentimentally justifies the one lived. Pulled by ideas outside the close captioned frame, the lag equates the quality and quantity of human life. Even now, the ghost takes shape in the model of linguistic refraction in which one thing is mistaken for another. Concise and extractable, like a modular component or this or that universal socket, where every distinction is but a fine point on the physiological preconditions of what we call reading the page, the fine point infinitely small, shuddering in the branching clades. Slug leopard. Some slugs think they are caterpillars. Some caterpillars think they are slugs. Don't be so afraid of hurting others. A dog sheds, a tree barks. We align ourselves downstream, dreamily. Formula. It is a manager's credo that sleep is not living. And so every night we die because to live is to be awake. Imaginary subsumption. The world is a network of millions of teacups, some milky, some not, some with a tea bag. This one is a fascist think tank. It has a storm in it. This storm masquerades as a storm of teacups, even pretends to be a teapot. And they all vibrate in storm. Hair featuring Daniel Owusu. You cannot cut your own head off with your lungs. Scolded, small, feels like stuck bronze. Fermented soldiers patrol the walls, folded into admiration. In the cinema, there's one person behind the screen, another sitting coughing. Every time they cough, the one behind the screen cringes up into a ball, like pancakes in a paper bag. Our ears are shaped so intricately, like roads or pathways. But really, our ears are hammocks because sound travels and so it needs a rest. This is community. Take the highest fevered note of a dream. It starts off in the fingertips, discharges to audio signals and electronics stored in some server farm, stored in wax, produced by bees, hidden in pollen, later unleashed from that into the localized slow node to restart some vibration in stilled, fetid air. It creeps to reach slinking into the ear, smashes its crystal, and sleeps. Sentences are broken biscuits, compacted thickets. Money is the last vestige of claws. The diaries are chirping, antlers raw at the buffet. This pierce mingles with managerial bequests, pulling nostalgia from your teeth in chorus to say yes, yes. Fuzzy roots mingling to bone. How much money can fit in this room, and should we lie inside the hole, its consecrated debt? Coin. Everybody's trying to cram as much world history into their poems as they can these days. Coins used to be cut from our hides, then embossed. Sometimes we write like every sentence is a gamble that could throw the game. In a flash, the total destruction of all chance encounters. There is exactly one point on the map at all times which coincides with where it actually is right now. It is cast better when a great cold is applied. Dinosaurs were being dug up in Britain at the high point of its power, so too with America and China. Every coin is a warning. Maybe the sample size is too small to get any purchase on a wider spectrum. We've all been in hiding for much too long. Gap. Last poem. If syllables are a weird subsection of music, which is an odd subsection of heat, then these things we call words are insane subdivisions rather than composites of syllables. In the movies, they dodge the weapon in slow-mo just in time, just as just-in-time production starts. Let that last bit be true. There then exists such antipodal points that the function of the sound is its derivative and its intervals are uncountable. Cuts of composition, cuts of feeling removed from each other, cuts of cutting across one another and walking and talking, which are attempts at disintegration. Cuts to funding, cuts of border in earth itself, the cuts on those rubber trees, the cuts the handout makes in the frame of the artwork to open it out to us. Cuts water makes as it erodes valleys, the cut of hearing another sound from another room while listening to another again, the film feeling cutting or cut off, does it cut us? James and Nisha, light produces light, but we isolate. All the extinct carbon-based life of the earth and living exhumed. Can the extinct not rest? Exhausted. Obviously, music is not a thing, but an absence. The gravity sink with the horizon. Fall into the music, its soft hair, fractal tendrils preserve and encode everything inside, everything that has been destroyed. There is no need to prove it because it is not a proposition. Thank you.